Hello, welcome to the third day of Swirl Circle's 7 days of summer surprises. And this time we're talking about dead games once again. I know, it's been a good minute, but there's more dead games. I think there's more dead games than the last video we did, but I'll have to fact check that. Anyways, before the video begins, what's your favorite dead game? Or any dead game that I should cover next time? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe and enjoy the video. The first game we're talking about is Among Us. This used to be like an actual hit in 2020. When everyone was indoors, everyone was playing Among Us or watching Among Us videos, anything Among Us related. Among Us was huge. Everyone is playing it. I was even playing it. But nowadays, Among Us is dead. Like, no one is playing Among Us. No one is talking about Among Us. Among Us barely talks about Among Us itself. And Among Us doesn't update that often. There's only like a couple maps. I'm sure they added new colors, but I don't really remember. No one talks about Among Us. I think the only time you'll ever play Among Us is if you have a bunch of people over and you all just play Among Us. But it's basically that's unfortunately how much Among Us is Among Us now. Well, I don't think there's much else to talk about Among Us. So we're just going to move on to the next game. The next game, I could talk about this for hours, man. Complete hours. Is Battlefront 2. This is one of the games that kind of hurts, because I actually was a big fan of Battlefront 2. But, since Battlefront had to, it was an awful loot system, and then basically that led to a bunch of laws being made because it was pretty much gambling. It was pretty awful at the beginning, but now it's not awful anymore, and they fixed it, and no one cares anymore. It's already left a bad taste in many people's mouths, and especially EA's and Disney's, because they are never. I don't know if I'll ever see a Battlefront 3, a sequel, and they could have added so many new characters from the Star Wars franchise, but they didn't, and it's just really dead, and it kind of sucks because I like this game. I still play it. But I'm not afraid to accept that's dead, and no one talks about it, and if they do talk about it, no one hears it. Biggest mistake, having awful loot system in the very early days, and just EA being EA. There's not much else you could do with EA. Anyways, we're just gonna move on to the next game. Yeah. The next game, which honestly isn't much of a shocker it's dead, is definitely Paladins. Another game by High Res, and if you guys haven't watched my last video, I'm gonna put a card here. Is the last Dead Games video. We talked about Realm Royale. This is the same people that made that game. And just like that game, this is also dead. Who talks about Paladins? Well, Paladins is, it gives me huge thirst trap vibes. And I'm just, it's strange. It's clearly an Overwatch ripoff. And, I just had to make that quick note. It's clearly a ripoff. There's nothing really original. But for some strange reason, me and Michael had just maybe a teaspoon of fun playing this game, even though none of us has played this before. It was a little strange, I'm not gonna lie, but it was quite silly. I don't know if there's much else to talk about this awful game other than don't be a ripoff and don't be made by High Res. The next game is PUBG, also known as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, one of the very first battle royales to be released. Now, this is pretty much common knowledge that this game has probably never been doing well since ever, but in the day it used to be pretty big. And I remember playing it on mobile for a couple of months, and that's about it. And I played it again, and I was like, oh, this game kind of looks awful, and it can't look any better. And my eyes started burning, and burning hard, and then I hurt, and it hurt me. Other than that, this game is just kind of bland. The controls are goofy. and it looks awful. Don't play this game unless if you're on mobile, then maybe. I don't know. Mobile version's better though, for sure. Moving on to the next game. The next game is something you'd be like, wait, didn't you just cover this already? I would be like, yeah, I did, but like I'm gonna do it again. This one is the Darwin Project, and I know I've already done this, but I'm gonna do it just so I could properly explain myself of why this game died. Honestly, I don't even know why this game died. It deserves so much better. It really didn't do anything that wrong, but it's dead anyways. And I think the only reason I can even come up with is just the aesthetic. Maybe the cosmetics, they aren't that good either. Other than that, it really just doesn't make sense of how it's dead. So I just think the aesthetic, just the fact of it being like a Hunger Games style of game, you know, maybe it didn't find, you know, maybe it didn't see the right people, and maybe just people just didn't give it a try. And that's why the Darwin Project kind of died. I just don't know much else of a reason. That's about it. Moving on to the last game. Another game that made me a little bit of a sad boy. Now this one I actually play quite frequently is Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite is another dead game. Well, it started off real strong, kinda. But then they didn't release Forge, and everyone just kind of left before Forge was actually released. Other than that, honestly, I don't think Halo deserved to die, maybe except for the goofy armor cores that do not really need to exist at all. But they still insist on, hey, you should buy this armor stuff, but you can't use it at all because you don't like the cores. And you know, that's not cool. But you know, this kind of hurts me because I really like this game. But then they had to just be stupid, and then everyone left, and no one gave it a second chance. Maybe in the future. I don't know. It's not dead. I'd say it's dying. That was the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to this point, comment Hyper Goose, and if I see Hyper Goose, I'll respond cool or something. Thank you for watching until the end. I really appreciate it. And if you do, that's freaking radical. Only the Hyper Goose gang exists because that you watched to the end of the video. Anyways, I'm gonna stop bugging you with Hyper Goose and play the outro. Also, enjoy the rest of the Swirly Circle 7 Days of Summer Surprises. Now, actually, cue the outro.